Welcome to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers. Howdy, animation fans. I am Mason. I am I'm going to be your big bad host man today. And welcome to episode 119 of the Animation Addicts Podcast. It's such a beautiful day, you guys, isn't it?
It's a beautiful day. Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get the title of the film confused with It's a Wonderful Life so much.
It's a beautiful day. It's such a beautiful day. Oh, it's such a beautiful day.
See, I have a whole nother.
I had a whole
you know what song I have stuck in
my head?
My song is Sun's Up. It's just a little after 12. It's a perfect day. In my way. Nothing can go wrong.
That's a good
one.
one.
We just lost a viewer while I was singing that.
Yes.
And welcome to the Animation Addicts Podcast. This is your home, your one-stop shop for all things animation and crazy, quirky songs. Hey, guys, we're a podcast about animation, and what does animation love to do most? Break out into songs. So get ready for that on this show.
Apparently. Yay. So if you're new to the show, then welcome. If you're old to the show, then welcome back. So what our show is basically about is we love animation, like with a passion. And as the Rotoscopers, we go over every line, every contour in detail of our favorite animated films. And now that the patrons, our Patreon subscribers, are choosing the films for us, some of the films we don't love. And, but that's okay because we look for the good in all of it. And think of us as your nerdy animation-loving friends. And we're all sitting on the couch talking about animated films and what makes animation great and what we love about it. And so welcome. Hopefully you're watching this live on the YouTube, in which case you can utilize the chat box on the right, and we'd love to hear from you. You can also go to rotoscopers.com/live in the future, for to check in on us or watch the live broadcast. So
yeah, and because we are now broadcasting this live, you get to see things that you never saw before. For once, you get to actually see the video of us. And just special for those who are watching the actual live broadcast or the video broadcast in the archives, that I have a blue tongue, so don't let that distract you. I made a very horrible life decision and decided to eat a blue Jolly Rancher before recording, and then I turned on the camera and I realized, so only the video watchers get to experience that. Audio listeners, you're good. So.
Yeah. So one thing you'll find if you're new to this show is that we like to quote ourselves, and our listeners like to quote us, and so we're always trying to think of suggestions of what the title should be of the episode. And no, seriously, didn't we have a whole activity for the end of year show that was mostly just myself talking about random? No, it was our Who Said It game that we did.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, some of those really brought me back. We've done over 100 episodes. It's always fun to look back at some wacky stuff that we were talking about. We like to go on tangents. So this was not necessarily a wacky tangent, more of a more serious one. But our thoughts definitely go out to any and all of our listeners who might be affected by the attacks in Brussels last night / today. Be strong, guys. You'll get through this. And really, our thoughts and prayers go out to y'all.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So before we go into our main discussion, I want to give a huge shout out to our patron, Alex D. He is the reason we are going to be reviewing the film that we are reviewing today, which is It's Such a Beautiful Day. I kept saying Beautiful Life based on that song that I was singing. It's Such a Beautiful Day by Don Hertzfeldt. He was the one who selected this, and we're really excited to do it. Definitely got us out of our comfort zone. Something new, something exciting. So that is one of the perks for being a patron. So thank you, Alex. Thanks for being a patron, and thanks for the suggestion. All right, so before we go into that, we're going to have a little nerdy couch discussion, just a little mini discussion where we talk about just a concept, sometimes related to the main discussion or film, sometimes unrelated. This time, it is a bit late. It's about a month past, more or less, but we are going to be talking about the Oscar-nominated films. We did do an episode 2 episodes ago, episode 117. You can go to rotoscopers.com/117 to listen to that episode where we discussed the Oscar-nominated shorts. But that was released just a few days before the actual ceremony. And then last episode, we didn't really get to talk about it much. So we are talking about it now. So let's just go straight into that. We're going to talk about the shorts and the animated films. So first off, let's talk about the Big Kahuna, which is Oscar-nominated movie.
We didn't talk a lot about the main films going into it, and we mostly talked about the shorts. But some of my favorites on here, we had Inside Out, Shaun the Sheep movie, how do you say that?
Anomalisa.
Boy and the World, and When Marnie Was There. Obviously, the Big Kahuna that won was Inside Out.
Yeah. Big Kahuna. So yeah, the Inside Out, that was pretty much no surprise to me.
Yeah. I think everybody went into it.
I was a bad animation fan. I've only seen Shaun the Sheep besides Inside Out, so I was pretty limited.
Mason. Shame.
Oh, I know, but just like my prejudging, I was like, Inside Out's gonna win. I'm totally not surprised.
Well, Inside Out it did have so much to offer, and everyone was so into it. So it didn't surprise me in the least.
Yeah, but doesn't this kind of go to show? I mean, it was the superior movie for the majority of the films that came out in 2014. But it seems a lot of times for animation in the Oscars that it is very much just common consensus and more general appeal than necessarily artistic masterpiece and appeal. And we see that a lot more in the shorts than the actual films that come out. But not surprised by this. However, there were really, really fantastic films. I do think Shaun the Sheep was equal to Inside Out on just a level. I just loved Shaun the Sheep and how it was able to tell the story very simply with no dialogue, which is, I hate to say this, like so brave, because no one does it anymore for animated films.
So fierce.
They feel that they have to like put in, a stupid dialogue or audio track for the kids because the kids aren't going to understand. But I love art and animation that they kind of stepped away from that and actually told the movie they wanted to tell, which was ultimately a better film. I couldn't imagine if they had some dopey dialogue or narrator on top of this. But, Shaun
what would Shaun sound like? Christopher Walken.
There we go. Christopher Walken as Shaun the Sheep. You heard it here first. The sequel. Get ready, guys. Direct to DVD or VHS.
So Louis Mangello did like a perfect Christopher Walken impression on the Peter Pan episode.
Yes.
I'm trying to conjure some sort of Christopher Walken in my head for an imitation, but I just can't do it. I can't visualize it.
When Marnie Was There is also a very fantastic film from Studio Ghibli. A lot of people really thought that was one of the top films as well, but ultimately did not make it. So let's move on to the Oscar-nominated shorts. So our nominees were Bear Story, Sanjay's Super Team, World of Tomorrow, Prologue, and We Can't Live Without Cosmos. Now, looking back at these, I did think I picked Prologue as what I wanted to win. And looking back and having time, apart from that episode, I think World of Tomorrow was actually, for me, the film that I would have put my money on and would have liked to have won. Prologue, while it was very artistic and from an actual technical standpoint, very, very, very impressive.
Probably the most superior of
Yes, that doesn't necessarily mean it was the superior film. So kind of backtracking a little bit on my previous statement from that other episode. Here, that's the great thing about being human. You change your opinions, you evolve, you grow.
Change.org.
World of Tomorrow is a Don Hertzfeldt film. So kind of a little teaser into what we're going to be talking about later today in the episode. But ultimately the winner was Bear Story, which none of us.
Yeah, that was the big crazy moment. And everybody was just like, what? Not to take anything away from Bear Story, because it was a Chilean film, so many big things that came out of this movie, and we're really proud of them. But still, for us, maybe it's just our own general appeal, millennials type age group. We just kind of, we liked World of Tomorrow. It was just so quirky and interesting.
It was so Hertzfeldt.
Oh.
I'm the one to say that. I really thought that Sanjay's Super Team was going to get it, but
really,
I really thought it was going to get the Oscar. I mean, I'm saying this, but I really don't give a rat's behind about the Oscars. But for what it was worth, I really thought that Sanjay would have won. Closely followed by Prologue, I guess. I don't know. Prologue was just so masterful, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but it did have a story.
But do you expect the Academy to appreciate how masterful it was?
No. No, I don't expect the Academy to get anything right.
You heard it here first. So, anyways, that is our brief little recap of the Oscars in case you had not been up to date on who had won. Definitely, we didn't predict. The only thing we got right was Inside Out. As far as the shorts, nope.
Mm-mm.
If we lived in a world where Pixar didn't exist, and Lord bless and keep us, but if that ever happened, then who would have won? Shaun the Sheep, Anomalisa, Boy in the World, or when Marnie was there? Who do you think?
I would have wanted Shaun the Sheep to win.
I think Shaun.
I just loved Shaun the Sheep so much. Every time I watch that movie, I enjoy it more and more.
Okay.
And yeah, I would have wanted them to win.
Okay. Yeah, I think either. Well, I don't know. The only one I ever saw was Shaun the Sheep.
So
Maybe Anomalisa. Maybe Boy in the World. When Marty was there, maybe. But definitely Shaun the Sheep. Yeah. I'm thinking like an Academy member already.
Yeah.
Man, you're
I
prime.
didn't have time to see all these, and my kid didn't want to see Anomalisa. I guess. So Inside Out. I don't know. All right. We're done with the Academy.
All right, so let's move on to our main discussion. So we are reviewing a feature-length film called It's Such a Beautiful Day by Don Hertzfeldt. It was actually a combination of 3 of his shorts, with the first one being Everything Will Be Okay, which was released in 2006. Second being I Am So Proud of You, released in 2008. And third, and finally, It's Such a Beautiful Day, which was released in 2011. So Don Hertzfeldt, he is an independent animator. He's been around for almost 20 years, since basically he came out of college. He's been a very well-known name in animation. He released this film. It was a very limited release on August 24th, 2012. So about a year after the third film was released. And, obviously it was, people loved it. When you look back at the critical acclaim for this film, many people had it as their on their top 10 list of best animated films for the year 2012. Many people even had it as far as on their top 10 list for best film of 2012.
Wow.
So very, very critically acclaimed. People love it. We will talk about our feelings on it. I don't have box office information or budget, obviously, because he does this entirely himself. So he has a production company called Bitter Films. It's basically just the corporate entity so he can release films. But he is the master operator, groundskeeper, editor, producer, voice actor,
control manager, caterer,
producer,
best boy,
gaffer.
Hey, we said it at the exact same time. That's crazy.
Love gaffer.
And that's from the old gaffer.
He is the epitome of the one-man show.
He is the one-man show. And let me tell you this, when he shows up in town to do like a screening or like a Q&A, people line up around the block to see this guy. Like he's a big deal. I don't know particularly about this particular film, but he is a huge inspiration to me. For one, animation is mostly done by hand. He used a Cintiq for the Simpsons interstitiary, or what do you call it? The couch gag.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch the Simpsons, so there I am.
We forgive you.
And he did what else did he do? Oh, World of Tomorrow was digital, but for the most part it's just pen and paper, and then he shoots it on a camera. And I'm pretty sure the compiling was done on Final Cut, and for this film, for It's a Wonderful Everything. I forget the title. Everything will be okay.
Day.
It's Everything Will Be a Day. But it's a really awesome example of like just what you can do if you have the drive, to quote one of my favorite movies, creation is an act of sheer will. Guess the quote. I dare you. Put it in the chat if you can figure out that quote. But so as a creative person, like I totally relate. Like I actually feel guilty if a week goes by and I didn't spend at least some time like creating something, And so in the internet age, it's so easy to produce your own stuff and share it for the whole world to see. And you don't necessarily have to put it in a theater. You don't have to wait until you're a master of your craft to put it out there. And you don't have to wait until you land your dream job at a major studio to start creating things. And for me, Hertzfeldt really epitomizes that as a creator. Speaking of which, Toons software is soon going to be free and open source. So y'all can make your own cartoons like even easier now. It's like when Unity and Unreal Engine went open source.
So one thing about, going with what Mason said about him, he is kind of this epitome of your classic artist, one who absolutely hates, corporations and the man. He vehemently hates advertising.
Yeah.
It's something that he does not believe in. He doesn't believe that you should, seek investors for your film because it ultimately hurts and damages the ultimate product because people get involved and whatnot. So he does not go to, big studios to get help. Everything is self-funded. So that way he can be ultimately in creative control and release as it is. And Mason was talking about, how he's, as an animator today, you don't have to release things in theaters, but he actually is very much a proponent that just because the internet is available and you can post things anywhere, we shouldn't, because it kind of has given according to him, the belief that animation is cheap and that you shouldn't be paid for your work, especially with shorts. It seems like a lot of shorts just go online, they put them on YouTube, but there's no way that they're actually compensated for the work that they're doing. And so he is very much against just throwing your stuff on YouTube and not being paid for it. And, just because you're a student or just because you're doing a short, you shouldn't be compensated. So he has gone to great lengths to make sure that his stuff is not available online. I do think the first part of these 3 films, Everything Will Be Okay, is available on YouTube, more as a teaser. However, if you want to watch it, you have to go to Vimeo you can go to Vimeo to watch it in its pure form, but you can also rent it on Amazon or iTunes. But he makes sure that even if you want to watch his short, that you pay to watch his shorts. He does everything himself, from producing DVDs and Blu-rays. He's the one-man shop. He will press them and deliver them and mail them to you. He doesn't want anyone else involved. And that's really how he supports himself. He's been this independent artist and animator basically since he got out of school. He went to University of California, Santa Barbara in the late 90s and graduated. And ever since, he's just on his own and really is quite an extraordinary example of how you don't necessarily have to go to a big studio. You don't have to give in to the man if that's not what you want, I guess. If you want to just be an independent, free spirit artist who tells your own stories, you can. And I appreciate everything that he's been able to do.
And you can make
that
a living out of it.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, in the music industry, it's the same thing. Like anytime you post anything, that's why you see a lot of covers on YouTube, is because if you post anything that's like yours, then you're really not going to be, you're just not going to be compensated at all. And you'll see, I obviously do a lot of research into this, but there's just a lot of people, they look at the music industry, any art really, it just gets posted out there for free, really does lower the value in general. And inherently art should be paid for.
Yeah, you can find this film on Netflix. That's where we all watched it. And obviously he did some sort of deal with Netflix to, pay for the rights for people on Netflix to watch his film. It's just because you're on Netflix doesn't mean you're not getting paid. So I think
you are getting paid.
Well,
you license it out.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, just because you're on Netflix doesn't mean you're not getting paid. It's just your movie just doesn't appear there.
Right.
And so that's, I think, very impressive that his film, he was able to, work with Netflix, get paid for the work that he has done on this. I don't know how much, probably not an amazing amount. However, it now has a distribution and an audience. And when you go on Netflix, it's rated 5 stars. Everyone enjoys this film. And so kudos to him and everything that he's been able to accomplish.
Yay. Kudos indeed.
Yay.
Kudos just reminds me of the candy bar that came out a while ago that was called Kudos.
Another thing, speaking of him self-financing, he recently did a Kickstarter in the summer of 2015 for a limited edition It's Such a Beautiful Day / World of Tomorrow Blu-ray. And that raised $215,000 just to have that newly minted. This is really interesting because he is very much a proponent of quality. So he doesn't let you watch his movie on certain areas or certain places, especially YouTube, because he absolutely hates the fact that the quality is diminished. And he thinks that the viewing experience is completely disrupted, and it destroys the ultimate film and what he is trying to share, because certain things are squished. When action is really fast, it's blurry or whatnot. So he has gone to great lengths on Vimeo to make sure that it is uploaded with the highest quality. And another thing with his Blu-ray release. And so going with this Blu-ray release, it really interested me that, we were talking about Don Bluth and Gary Goldman, who wanted, and when you think of Don Bluth, he's kind of this independent animator as well, who, not to this level, Don definitely had given into more of a mainstream commercial element. Troll in Central Park is example A. However, I mean, when you do think of, the people who broke the mold or, did their own thing, definitely these two would fall in that category on different levels. And I thought it was just really interesting because Don Hertzfeldt has such an audience. I mean, he just basically said, hey, I want to release this on Blu-ray. Will you support it? $215,000. Don Bluth, on the other hand, wanted to release basically a pitch reel for a new film, which would be the Dragon's Lair film. And that, took a while. Ultimately, it earned around $550,000, basically double of this, but completely different things. I think it's just really incredible. Shows how much just having an audience can sustain you, because I do believe that Don Hertzfeldt has a very, very strong, passionate audience where his films and his messages very much resonate with people. I went on his website and I, was looking at his Twitter, and he retweets his fans, and people are, recently, I think finally the Kickstarter Blu-rays, he got them early March, and now they're starting to actually hit people's doorsteps and they can watch them. And so people are tweeting pictures and whatnot, and people are so excited. And so if you can go check out his Twitter or Facebook, and I'll include a link in the show notes so you can check that out. But he definitely has his fans, and I thought that was very impressive because, many people maybe who listen to our show may be unfamiliar with him, but he definitely is very influential for a lot of people. Yeah. Well, it also is really, really inspiring. I'm sure you guys have heard the phrase of 1,000 true fans. How if anybody has, you don't have to be making $1 bazillion to be able to make a living. And for an artist, if you have at least a certain, there was in Wired magazine, the guy who created that one, he said, as long as you have 1,000 true fans, which basically if you created like $100 worth of material in a year, and you had 1,000 people that were willing to purchase that $100, then you would be making $100,000 a year, and which is a very livable income. It's really great to see that the niche really does pay. So it's nice, and it gives any type of an artist a little bit of a goal to shoot for, which is cool. So keep creating. So one thing we will briefly talk about the other short films that he has done. But one thing in particular Chelsea mentioned was he did the Simpsons Couch Gag in 2014. And I thought it was a really interesting story because I read he did an AMA on Reddit, and this was part 3 of an AMA. So he does one every few years. I'll include a link in the show notes to that. But he mentioned how, how did that come to be? How did you end up doing? And it was a very long Simpsons Couch Gag. It was about 2 minutes long. Yeah. And he mentioned
wasn't it the longest of that time up until then? Yeah.
And he mentions how he was just reached out by one of the directors on Facebook. They reached out to him and said, hey, we weren't really sure how else to contact you, so we were messaging you on Facebook. And they said, hey, we're interested in you potentially doing a couch gag for The Simpsons. Would you be interested? And he said, absolutely. And so they started going back and forth. And they said, okay, well, you'll need your pitch, and then send us some storyboards and an animatic, and we'll go from there. And he said, well, actually, I don't do storyboards. And I don't even know how to do an animatic. So, and also, this would be very hard to convey what I want. Just, you're going to have, what is a storyboard for one of these scenes? It's going to be Blob Lisa going, I don't think that expresses what this ultimately will be. So let me just animate this. And if you don't like parts, I can reanimate it. And it's just, to me, it's just really funny about his process. And
I love it, man.
And even to this day, they went forward and he did it. However, he still has never met any member of the team. So it was done completely through
funny.
The internet. And, yes.
It's he's the independent artist. I love it. And thankfully he lives in an age when he can crowdfund his projects and when he can like make a living off of selling his own like self-produced stuff. And I'm really happy for the guy because it sounds like he's really like found his life as an independent creative, and man, it makes me a little jealous.
So one last thing before we go into talking about his other shorts. I thought this was really funny. This was in the AMA. He mentions how Pop-Tarts a few years ago did a commercial that was very Hertzfeldt-esque. And if we haven't really gone into his style, but it's very simple, stick figures, quirky, I guess, and very simplified in the utmost sense. Almost to the fact where if you were new or uninitiated, you would think this is cheap or this person has no skill. So they did a commercial, and it is kind of in the style. And someone asked him, like, "What do you think about it? Should we sue them and whatnot?" And he says,
"Oh, brother!
Everyone keeps asking me this. You know what would honestly be more effective if you guys boycotted them? Don't buy their garbage when they do things that you don't like. Consumers wield all the power in the world. Also, did you know that Pop-Tarts are made from compressed human ashes?"
Well, it's very true, actually. Yeah, I love this philosophy, man. Like every year, fans of like a particular thing, doesn't matter if it's an artist, a movie, a video game, a genre, they're subjected to this hype that like builds up their expectations, and then they get crushed sometimes and disappointed when the product that actually comes out doesn't live up to the standards. Star Wars, Superman versus Batman. I unpurposely said the name wrong because whatever. And they don't know that they can wield the power of the purse to change things. Like, don't go and see these crappy knockoffs and these, and these sequels and mashups and spinoffs that you know are going to be terrible. Don't go see them just because it's your characters that you like or whatever. Of course, I go and see every Godzilla movie by default, so I guess I need to work on that. But yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I guess to round this off, like it's so fascinating talking about Hertzfeldt. Like, the guy is something that I aspire to in terms of like a sense of like independence and like an entrepreneurial spirit and just like a desire for creative freedom. Like he has it. Like he doesn't have to answer to any producers. He doesn't have to answer to any like syndicate or anything. And it sounds like he really respects his fan base, and like in the internet age, like that's a huge thing. And it's really no wonder why he's so why he's so beloved by his fan base. Also, really quick, Abby, who's watching right now, got my quote right about creation being an act of sheer will. That was John Hammond's character in Jurassic Park. So I was first exposed to Don Hertzfeldt, I guess. I first heard one of his shorts like in middle school or something like that. I think I watched part of Rejected, but I didn't watch all of Rejected until a couple of years ago. It was like, we put it on at like 4 a.m. I was with a bunch of my friends from school and we watched it, and it was just a wonderful experience. I haven't watched it since, so I don't know what like not 4 a.m. viewing it would be like. But man, I just love it. In fact, one of the lines is like one of the most quoted lines ever in my like circle of friends growing up. Nice. I don't know if I can say it on a clean podcast, but anyway. I really love it. Like, Rejected is just so genius,
So my first experience with Hertzfeldt was in 2008. I was taking a history of animation class, and his short Billy's Balloon was shown, and that's kind of one of his first ones when he was on the scene. Very simple, complete opposite of It's a Beautiful Day. It's such a beautiful day in the fact that there is no dialogue. And the balloons really take over it. It's almost violent. It's very violent in what happens. But so that was my first introduction. However, I had not seen the movie we're going to talk about until today. And then Chelsea has a interesting situation.
I don't know how this happened.
Get ready.
We have a little conversation on the internets saying, hey, this is the link to go find the information. And I guess when Morgan posted it, I grabbed it at the exact time right before she deleted it. And so I thought we were just going to go to, when I heard we're going to be doing Don Hertzfeldt shorts. And so I figured, okay, I'm going to be watching several shorts. Oh, we've done that before. I'm good. And then she posted this link. It was to the very first
The first one that he put online.
Yes.
Yeah, everything will be okay.
Yeah, everything will be okay. And I was like, cool. So I go there, and then it just, keeps going on the consecutive shorts.
The autoplay.
Yeah, it's the autoplay. And so I end up watching like 6 shorts later, and I'm like, all right, Meaning of Life, Lily and Jim, which I think of all of them, that one was probably the funniest one. Basically, it's his 3rd student film. Lily and Jim was shot in 1997, and it was partially improvised vocal performances by the 2 characters. It's basically an animated reality show of a blind date, and it was so bad. It was like how the worst blind date one could ever think of. And then also afterward of like, well, I didn't, think that he would actually call me. Of course he wouldn't call me because this, and like, it was the worst blind date. And why in the world would anybody want to even repeat that? But at the same time, they're both thinking, oh my gosh, he doesn't like me. So therefore, but I could have liked him. I don't know. It could have been great. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is just painful. But it was really funny in that way. Genre, also kind of an interesting thing. Wisdom teeth. Wow, that one is very disgusting. I liked the quotation he said that Wisdom Teeth was done in 2010 and is an unnecessary cartoon that Don drew in between more important things. That's exactly what it was.
So
isn't that's the only thing that we want, though. We just want the stuff that you do when you're bored,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. But so I got a very wide look at Don Hertzfeldt this morning.
Yes.
Wow. Very good. Very thorough, Chelsea. Way to do your homework.
Thank you.
All right. So it's such a beautiful day. There, I got the title right. It's written right here on the Google Doc. Okay, so a current user review on IMDb says that It's Such a Beautiful Day is, quote unquote, 10 out of 10, the greatest movie of all time. Oh, brother. People really like this. Like, it's got a really high rating on like Metacritic and all this stuff, and for the most part, the fan base is pretty rabidly defensive of this film when anyone criticizes it. So, this was back in 2012.
Yeah, so back in 2012, like I mentioned, this made a lot of people's different top 10 lists, best film, best animated film lists. However, it did not secure the Oscar nomination for best animated film. So there you go. Mm-hmm. It did not make it. So first thing you're going to notice, this was Chelsea's particular review, this is not rated.
No, it is not. And I would say it is not for general audiences. I mean, we are a clean podcast, so we just want to make sure that if they're, don't go and say, hey kids, let's watch this.
Yeah, an adult, absolutely nothing out of like offensive per se, I would think. However, for children, I don't know if they would get it, and some of the we don't show this to children necessarily.
Yeah, I would say just not for general audiences. There are some references to porn and some profanity. So just you have been warned.
Profanity. I didn't raise no podcast to participate in profanity. Shoot. But seriously, Mom, don't watch this, and little kids don't watch this either.
So the first thing you're going to notice about this, if you have not seen any of Hertzfeldt's films before, is that it is very simple animation. And don't let the simple animation fool you. He is quite the master of the medium and really knows how to expertly use animation and very simple figures to convey emotion and story. There's certain scenes where Bill, who is the main character of this film, where he's received certain news and he takes his hat off and he, rubs his head and is just kind of like wallowing and very simple character design for him, but just the way that he's able to animate and convey emotion, you feel for Bill, which is the whole point of animation, is to convey this life. Doesn't matter what it looks like. So, this is the first thing off the bat. I do think that people would look at this film and be like, stick figures. This is not,
What are we watching?
Is he a student?
What are we watching?
Did he even go to school? I mean, really? And
this isn't Pixar. This isn't what I'm used to.
Yeah, and I think that's really short-sighted to go into this film or any of his films, judging it based on the certain style that he chooses to implement.
Yeah, I would recommend you broaden your animation horizons by watching Hertzfeldt, but also do your homework and know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with the way I've actually really enjoyed the fact that he does it this way, because it does free your mind to have other thoughts instead of judging. You just accept the fact that it's going to be stick figures. And so therefore you're not judging stick figures for their, oh, that didn't look quite right. Or, oh, that movement was slightly off. Oh, it took me out. Like, you just accept this is not going to be about the art. It's about the story. It's about the emotion. It's about connecting with a character and actual storytelling. That being said, also, it's just the very beginning of this movie was so random. And it just really opens you up to say, wow, like the first 2 minutes, I was laughing out loud at least 4 times. And I was just like, I love Bill. He's so funny.
I can't even remember the beginning of the film. It just was such nonstop like narration that
very non sequitur.
Yeah. Well, I think one of my favorite lines was like, the store clerk asked him how he was. He said, I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you? She did not answer. Bill felt
Oh, yeah. Bill walks down the street and he sees that guy that he knows and he mixes up. I do this all the time. I met a very well-known artist the other day at a A&M faculty meeting, or outside of one. And I really wanted to say hi to him because I know him personally. And for some reason, I get so intimidated around him. And I forgot what I said to him. I think I said, I think he was like, hey, Mason, how's it going? And I mixed up, how are you? And fine. And I think I said something like, you.
How's up?
And, like, shook his hand.
How's up? What?
No, I was just like, you. And I like... his hand.
How are you?
So,
you.
Hey Mason, how's it going? You. So that was thankfully he's a really nice guy, and I got to catch up to him about an hour later and be like, hello, how are you doing today?
I can speak in correct sentences.
Speak Mason, but anyway, it all worked out. But I have had the exact same thing that happened to Bill at the beginning of this movie happened to me. So now I remember the beginning.
All right.
So another thing that I noticed initially is this film kind of just the way that it's animated. So there's, the actual animation, and then it's surrounded by this black vignette.
Mm-hmm.
And many times there's 3 scenes at once. Where, there's the one where he and his ex-girlfriend are laying in the park.
Yeah.
And then right above it is the live action footage of the tree, which is supposed to be above them. And to me, the way that this was filmed and just the way that it was, set up on the screen reminded me very much of like a slideshow, just moving from one slide, old fashioned, one slide to another, really gave that sense of, very non-sequitur going from one. Yeah,
it had a real like vignette feel to it. Like I appreciated it because it helped make sense of everything that was happening, since the narration was relatively fast paced. And so it helped us look at, boom, the keys, boom, the coffee cup, boom, he drops the coffee cup. What is up with that dang coffee cup? And all that stuff. And I really liked all the live action effects. It took me back to some of Ralph Bakshi's stuff, where he kind of goes into like urban life, and there's all this. You'll usually see animated characters walking around in live action. What do you call them? Settings.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing, he used, all the effects were done completely in camera traditionally. So the animation is all done traditionally. Everything that there's certain scenes where there's craziness happening and things that are shuddering and whatnot, and that's just all in camera effects that he's able to do. The only digital effort that he's ever been able to do where he's actually drawn the characters digitally was the most recent short, World of Tomorrow, which was nominated for the Oscar. So before then, it's completely traditional.
Interesting.
And,
it's impressive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's impressive. I love going analog.
So Mason, we had mentioned that this was 3 different shorts that were released at different times. They progressively tell the story of our main character, Bill, combined into a main, 62-minute feature-length film. It's very clear that these are separate vignettes, just because he did combine them with these interstitial scenes that kind of, make short 1 blend to short 2. But even when you go into short 2, it says chapter 2. It's very clear that this is a 3-part structure. Here's story 1, story 2, story 3. So Mason, how would you describe, the story for each of these 3 main acts?
Unnecessary. Yeah. Yeah, I hate to be that guy, the voice of dissent, but again, to quote Jurassic Park, maybe they thought too much about whether they could do it without thinking about whether they should do it. I thought the story of Bill was best restrained to 10 to 15 minutes. And I almost couldn't handle 60 minutes of poor old Bill. Lord bless and keep him. Obviously, he had some health issues and that he couldn't help. But yeah, I thought
issues too.
But you hit the nail on the head there, Morgan, when you said that it's a 3-part structure, not a 3-act structure. There is no real inciting incident besides maybe once you get into like the first 15 minutes when weird stuff starts happening to him. And there really isn't anything like there are several climaxes. And so I don't know. I thought it was interesting how there is kind of this imposing sense of doom on Bill. Oh, by the way, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it yet. As he starts to see the doctor and as weird things starts happening to him, like feeling a little bit of pee trickle down your leg for no reason and, that kind of stuff, and having kind of weird anxiety trips and
hallucinations,
like hallucinations. I think what was the most frightening for me was how he really was able to communicate what it's like to, as I imagine, suffer from dementia or loss of memory or loss of perception. There's parts where the doctors have treated him for one of his problems, and they're asking him if he's awake, if he can understand what they're saying. And of course, we can understand what they're saying for the sake of the story, for understanding what's going on in the actual film. But they're showing us these images. Do you recognize this person? And you can't recognize that person because of the way it's drawn. And it just really drives home, I guess, the horrors of ailing health and ailing mentality. And it's a reality in the film, and it's difficult to be confronted with it, and that's what I think is one of the most mature parts of the film. I wish that the overall trippiness and overall hallucinogenic quality of the film would have had a more gradual, a little better controlled, I guess, gradation from normal Bill at the beginning to existential, eternal god Bill, at the end, where it's like the light beings that revere him as a god in the afterlife / frozen synapses of his brain, or firing synapses. But anyway, I wish that was a little better controlled, because I think the mint chocolate chip ice cream really hits the fans really early in this film, and it doesn't let up until we're done. And so maybe, I guess, pacing, of course, Hertzfeldt is such an artist. It's like, how dare I criticize his treatment
pacing
of the film?
Of all things.
Well. Oh no, it's not all. That's not the only problem I have with this film, is the pacing. But anyway,
did you guys like the narrator's voice?
Y'all go first. Let's start with a positive.
Narrator, huh?
I liked it.
The narrator was Don himself, the director. So
I liked it.
Again, he does
For
everything.
some reason, I thought he was British. I guess British accents just make you sound more intelligent, like on The World of Tomorrow. But anyway, so I have mixed feelings about the narration. Like, on the one hand, like he floods us with a lot of random details. It's not he walks down the street, he walks down the avenue that's past the bakery. It's not he notices a shoe on the ground. He says he notices a woman's shoe with leaves stuck in it that fills him with inexplicable horror, or something like that. And so, on the one hand, all the random details, it makes the Bill's story feel real, because it's like Don is saying, here, I have all these specific details to back up what I'm saying. So it's real. This is really coming from someone's mind. But my gosh, it just wouldn't stop. There was no respite in the whole film. And So I'm just going to take a guess here and assume that heavy narration is Don Hertzfeldt's style, but it made the film boring. I'm sorry. There was very little. Maybe I need to see the one that you mentioned, Chelsea, the dating one, Lily and Jim, because maybe that has a little more variety in the dialogue. But it was just this guy and a couple of voiceovers for dialogue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm like, well, I'm actually thinking of like the difference of Lily and Jim with this one. Yeah, Lily and Jim is an entirely different story. It's entirely different, but it has quite a few of those random details in there that you're just like, why did we need to know that? But okay.
So with this film, like we were talking about, it's a 3-part film. It's really just 3 shorts that were put together. They did, obviously build on each other. They were a few years apart when they were released, but ultimately maybe it wasn't the master plan to release them as a film, or maybe it was, I don't know. But they do feel, like Mason said, very separate. The first one, it has its peak, it has its issues, then it resolves. And then part 2, kind of picks up where the other one left off, but it's a completely different story. We talk about his mother dying, and then the problems that had, and how there were all these people from his childhood and all these memories that maybe weren't even real in the first place. Maybe they were just his way of coping, and so he was able to put these memories in just in order to fill a gap. For example, the brother with the hooks for arms that ran into the ocean and just suddenly died. We're left wondering, did this even happen? Because at the very end, it kind of throws it on its head. And then the final act is ultimately him coming to grips with his ultimate demise and his sickness. Yeah, and then
it gets to a point where he really does not know what the heck is going on.
Well, yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. He then is just so out of it that he doesn't know what's going on, and we are seeing it from his perspective, and so we're seeing, potentially what it could be like for someone suffering from a disease like this, and what the end is like from them, where you're talking to someone and then 2 seconds later you don't even know who they are, can't recognize faces. Everything is meaningless almost. Although at the very end,
everything is meaningless.
It did have a theme about how to truly take time to appreciate the details, because there's that moment where he's walking around that block, and it really gets very vibrant with the colors there in this part, and we're seeing him touching or viewing the bricks on the house, and just the different all the textures and things that he missed before just because he was living his life. And that's, very much contrasts the art style, where the art style is very simple. I mean, you wouldn't see these minute details ever through Hertzfeldt's normal art style. But at the very end, it really brings these to life, which is interesting that he chooses to focus on that when the majority of his artwork doesn't focus on the details per se.
Yeah, it brings the narration focuses on the details,
yes,
but
narration,
the art style,
not necessarily the art. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And yeah, I do like that kind of like extreme hypersensory experience that happens at the end that helps Bill realize, or it helps Bill come to the realization, or really the regret that like life is really too short. And by the time you start realizing these amazing things that are inherent in life, like it's too late or something like that. I think that's even a quote where it's like, you never tell people how you really feel until it's too late, or something like that. And then either he's imagining he's on his deathbed, or he is talking to his younger self, like in spirit or something like that. But there's this kind of thing where he tells himself, like, you have to live life and enjoy it, like every single second of it, because sooner or later you're going to be looking back instead of forward, and you're going to have to you're going to be experiencing all these things that are that happen when life is ending. And so it's just a very, that's like the small bit of warmth in this film, that makes me, that is my takeaway. Otherwise, the movie is very cold and very bleak.
Mm-hmm. So what did you think about the ending? Like, I'm not quite sure what happened there. And I was following, for the most part, I thought I was. And then all of a sudden he becomes this existential being, which I get, I'm totally can stand by that, death is not the end, but he and his life force just perpetuates and keeps going even through the end of time, almost to the point where he outlives society. He outlives the earth. He outlives the universe. And then these light beings see him, and he's still around, and he is seen as a god to them and worshipped, and he continues to exist for the end of time. And I'm not quite sure what he was trying to tell there. Does this happen to everybody? Did this just happen to Bill? If that's the case, why did this happen to Bill? And the idea that one person or one entity can outlive even space and time itself, I'm not so, I don't know. It left me a bit confused at the end, where I was totally kind of accepting everything that was happening on the way that it was told, but at the very end, maybe it was a bit over my head, but it didn't resolve in a way that I guess was very satisfying, and maybe that was the point.
Yeah, well, you are just a mortal, Morgan. So don't worry about it. You'll get it eventually. I think I know a little bit about this because I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey all the way to the end, and I fearlessly read the Ashes in a Coma fan fiction from Pokemon, so I know a little bit about this stuff. And so I think this was just an existential way of expressing the mystery of death. My personal theory is that this is something that happens to everyone, in that Bill is experiencing his life perpetuating into eternity as his life force is slowing down to nothing, to death. Mm-hmm. And so I think he is at the very penumbra, if you will, of his own life. And as that happens, time slows down to nothing, and he feels like he can exist forever. And so I think that was just a very highly depressing and very artsy way of expressing death. And so, if you want to believe that Bill lives on in the eternities, then please feel free to do so. Honestly, I don't care that much about this film to debate it any further. But I
put a stop to that right now.
Right?
Bam! But the ending was that when it got all trippy, and he becomes the Star Child. Again, that's a 2001 Space Odyssey reference, but I almost thought there would have been a floating monolith or something that he confronts. But the ending was where I started paying attention to the film again, because there was actually a time when I was so bored of the film, I just listened to it while I did homework. And so it came to that, folks.
I agree with that sentiment. I do think there was a period of time where I was like, all right, where is this going? Let's just wrap it up, And
then there was even a part where
there's still 20 minutes left.
There was a part where it was almost like Don interjected into the story and was like, wait, he can't die. He can't just fade away like that. He has to go on. Like, he can't just die. And so they go into more and more and more stuff, and it's kind of this madness, and you wonder if it's him, if it's Hertzfeldt himself, like, willing Bill to go on because there's some sort of unfulfilled artistic, thing, or what do you call it? Revelation that never happened, or is it just all part of the act of Bill's brain, in the death throes of nerves firing and memories coming in and out? I don't know. It's just this big, huge, complex thing. But unfortunately, the film as a whole didn't resonate with me enough to really want to go into it that much. But anyway, it was pretty cool. The imagery was pretty interesting.
So we kind of talked about some of the film's themes, one being, take time to appreciate the details. Another one, how temporal life is. Mm-hmm. I think from the very first part of the film, we do see that, he has a sickness, he has some sort of disease that he's suffering from, and the effects that has. And that does continue and perpetuate throughout all of the films, or the whole film, as he doesn't really ever recover from this. And it makes you realize that this could happen to any of us at any time. It could end very quickly.
Yeah. The theme that I extracted from it was that you will eventually die, and it will be a horrifying, seemingly endless ordeal.
I mean,
if I ever show signs of dementia, like, that's it. Like, religiously, I don't condone suicide, but I think it would be okay if my mind is just deteriorating. I would just jump naked off of an airplane.
Well,
that would be my way to go. Maybe I'll combust on the way down.
Please, when that happens, let me know your plan on how to actually
I'll
throw yourself off of an airplane. Yes.
No. Okay.
Oh
I'm sorry if that was insensitive, but like, gosh, this film really drives home the horrors of a deterioration of the mind, of mortality. That's just it. It's mortality. It's not. What's interesting is that maybe it's not specifically expressing one certain ailment. Like, I don't think they ever go into the film on what exactly was happening to Bill.
No.
What's really interesting, especially on any artistic thing, really, I think somebody wrote this, which means somebody thinks like this. These thoughts actually come into Don's mind. And you look at, because he is the man of this film, it's like, you're really showing us what you're thinking, Don. And then it's like, I'm thinking you've got some things to work out on your own side.
I don't see that. I don't see like, wow, what a deranged mind of the director. I just think he.
I don't know. Have you seen Rejected?
I have not. So I must check that out at a later point. But it's just an interesting way of telling thoughts and ideas that maybe the general populace doesn't look at or explore. I do appreciate this film for what it is and what it does explore and the way it goes about it, which is very impressive in what it's able to do. But as far as future viewings, I do not think this will necessarily be on my list of things I got to see a lot. I was reading some reviews and different people giving their thoughts on this film. And one person said, I love this film. I watch it multiple times per year. And to me, I appreciate that. I think it's amazing that you're able to get that much out of this film. But for me, I did not get that much out of it where it would be one of my multiple times per year viewings, which, but however, I did enjoy this film in a way that I was talking to someone about the film today and, mentioned it. And they said, well, how was it? And I said, it was both bizarre and, somewhat stimulating and thought-provoking and very different and artistic and expressive. And I guess I would recommend it because it was so bizarre that I feel like you just have to see it just to experience it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I did recommend it, but in a very sort of roundabout sort of way.
It is like, that's something I really respect about it. Like there's, as I mentioned, I said, like, it may seem like I'm giving this guy a bad rap, but no, like his humor is really funny. Like there's a lot of points that I was like, man, I love this guy's humor because it's just so random and hilarious. He felt used. Like it's just great. But
it's very literal.
Yeah, it's very literal. But just like in World of Tomorrow, a lot of his short films, and through a lot of the ones that I saw today, they do leave you thinking about them. Later on, I will be thinking about a lot of these moments, and you watch enough of them and they kind of blend into one, but there's a lot of interesting things that he portrays, a lot of interesting moments that you just feel like, okay, all right, interesting. So
yeah. Well, I was digging around a little bit because I wanted to know, what was the buzz with this film? Like, what was the deal with it? So I came across a mini review, like a snippet, if you will, a blurb, if you will. It's from a former Pixar animator. He actually teaches animation at CalArts, so it's not like this is some dude, being like, worst movie ever. And it pretty much sums up my thoughts on the film perfectly. He says, I'm glad people were moved by this film. I've tried to watch it several times and I find it pretentious and boring, relying on narration almost entirely to tell its story and containing minimal animation. I know that's his style, but it works best when it's funny. I like Hertzfeldt's sense of humor and timing, but this film leaves me cold. Anyone else feel that way, or am I alone? I say, preach, brother, because you're not alone. That is almost exactly how I feel about this film. Do I think the film is pretentious? Yes. Do I think that Hertzfeldt is pretentious? No. I am going to love the sinner and hate the sinner. I mean, love the filmmaker, hate the film. In this case, don't get me wrong. And I suppose I should get into my rating on this. Don't get me wrong, I highly respect Hertzfeldt as an artist, and personally, I consider him one of my biggest influences on my own art style. Like for me, Don Hertzfeldt is like a crusader for us cartoony guys. We see the power in stick figures. But I did not enjoy this particular film for which, and that is the reason why I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 stars. I think this is like the first time I've ever done this on the podcast. 2 out of 5 stars, people. I didn't enjoy it. Sorry, not sorry. I thought the film was going to end like 6 or 7 times, and each time it started back up, the new ending before it began again was less redeeming than the previous one. And for me as a viewer, like, I just felt like this was dragging on, of course, because I love the Rotoscopers and I love you guys, and I love Alex D. Sorry, man. I watched it. You know what movie I preferred that was more along this vein of like kind of art animation, realism, existentialism, the frailty of life, was Mary and Max. It's a stop motion film starring that guy. I have a brain fart, but anyway. Apparently Alex is taking this well in the chat, so we're still best buddies. So you know what, Mary and Max, it had more heart despite the bleak theme of it and the lack of color and things like that and the ending. And Mary and Max also incorporated humor that was, in my opinion, more relevant to the actual story of what was going on, and it relied on dialogue between the characters rather than narration. And so please don't judge It's Such a Beautiful Day as what Don Hertzfeldt is all about. It just happens to be my least favorite short or my least favorite film that he's done, and it just happens to be the least favorite film that I've reviewed on the podcast so far. But anyway, that is my soapbox for the episode. I know we can't have a Rotoscopers episode without it, but I just didn't enjoy it. I'm so sorry, guys.
So I'm going to rate this movie. I'm on the fence between 2.5 and 3 stars. I found this movie interesting at the beginning, the very first vignette, part 1. I thought it was funny, very well written, just unique and different. And then it kept going and going and going. And then it lost its appeal and the humor and the quirkiness. I think it, as 3 separate shorts viewed at separate times, would have been more powerful in the fact that, you're able to take a break from it and not be somewhat desensitized by the way in which the jokes are portrayed and the animation and whatnot. So yeah, towards the middle to latter half, I started losing interest and, don't really hate this film. I just don't see this film necessarily being something in my classic animation repertoire that I'll be going back to multiple times per year to view. However, I am grateful that I did see this movie and it expanded my animation horizons. I think it is interesting, and I very much applaud it and more importantly, applaud Hertzfeldt for what he does for animation and his viewpoint that he is able to tell, which you do not see very much of. I love his independent spirit and, on an anonymity in a way where the fact that he doesn't have to feel obligated to a big corporation or a studio or whoever, any benefactor that's supporting him. It's just him, his vision and whatnot. So I don't know, 2.5, 3, it's kind of a toss up for either or. So 2.75, we'll just call it that.
You can't do that. Only Myra can do the multiples of 1 quarter.
Nope, it is now.
I've done it several times.
Yes, Chelsea does it all the time. So there you
go. All right. So to say a little bit more on my stance, I actually, because of my misunderstanding of the instructions today, I only did watch the first one.
That's the big reveal, guys.
That's the big reveal.
Chelsea has to see the last 2.
So I'm like, do I even want to go and watch the last part?
You need to.
Wait, you didn't even watch the whole thing?
No, I just watched the first one, but I watched like 12 others.
Rotofowl.
She's been conveniently quiet, if you haven't noticed.
Rotofowl.
When we were discussing
so you noticed my face.
Oh yeah, I thought that me and Morgan were ranting on and on and on for too long. I was getting that funny feeling again.
So, yes, for anybody.
Actually, Chelsea has probably watched the most Don Hertzfeldt shorts out of all of us 3, so you definitely get a lot of reward for that.
She didn't do her homework; it was just the wrong assignments.
Right.
It's like back in school when you totally misunderstood the assignment and failed the entire thing, even though now you're like, but I did so much.
You may have done the wrong homework, but you're still a star. Yay, top 4.
Yeah. Hey, that's all on the final at the end of the day.
Right. What if this was the final? Don't.
Oh, well, Chelsea's going to have her own existential revelation about the frailty of life.
So I'm going to be judging a lot of these all in kind of the same way. As far as the first one, I really did like the first one until it did get to the end. And at the end of the first section, I was just like, I like Bill and Bill less as it went on. I like him less and less as it goes on.
Because he's sick?
Because he's sick? That's what I was just thinking.
What's wrong with you, Chelsea?
Realize he's deranged?
Well, like, it was just... No, No, it was the
fact that... What do you got to say now?
Like, I liked him. I still liked him, but in a different way. Like, you wanted to help him more. And it was less the whole tone of it changed from I think this is going to be a funny movie or a funny thing of just a lot of these random quips in there and funny little things to like something that I just wasn't expecting. And so I liked him in the funny ha-ha way less in the, I feel like I need to help you and I'm a little bit more like involved in your life right now through that way. So it's just a shift in the way I look at him.
So what would you rate the first film that you watched, the first short?
The first short, I felt like you did get a good I felt like you did get a good sense of kind of just the sporadicness of this guy and kind of just how we all are a little bit that way. I really liked the one scene where he says, I thought about how every time that he put his keys on the counter, and maybe this is actually my life, all of these random mundane things that I do every single day, and all of the other things are the exception. And like that made me think of like, okay, what daily habits am I doing? What things should I change? Like, so those are little things that go to my mind. And so I appreciated, having that put in front of my face. What do I do every day? And
you're ranting.
Yeah, that is rant. Okay, so anyway,
match mine and yours. It's all good.
Yeah, that's true. She's been holding it.
Has been brought to the podcast.
Balance. That's all I got. And in the end, I don't know. I give it like a 3 stars in that way. It wasn't something that I'm like, I really like this. It was just more of I appreciate a lot of these things that he's putting in front of me.
So there you go, guys.
So there you go.
There you have it, people. So before we wrap this episode up, we just want to acknowledge all the people who were on chat with us. So thank you, Gabriella, and of course, Alex, Chelsea, Abby, Wise Man the Wicked. Sorry, that's your screen name. Jonathan North, and did I mention Gabriella? Anyway.
Yes, you did.
Of course, me. I'm like over participatory. There was a point when I was typing so much in the chat today that Google actually put an embargo on me. It was like, you're chatting too much. You have to wait 30 seconds before you can chat again.
But what? I am the host.
But I am the Rotoscopers. Anyway. So yeah, another episode done. Oh, just some ending remarks. So here's a Mason public service announcement here. So as we all probably know, Batman versus Superman is coming out this week. And I can't remember a more hyped up film since, Star Wars. That was the last overly hyped up film. Anyway, so please listen up. Let's all please be quiet and respectful when we go see this in the movie theater. Like, repeat after me. Do not talk. I will not talk.
I will not talk.
There you go. Do not cheer and clap when your favorite superhero or superheroine arrives on screen, because we've known for months that these characters will in fact be in the film. It is not a surprise. So stop cheering and clapping during the film. So, people want to actually hear the movie that's going on. To quote my friend from yourmoviesucks.org, he's not really a friend, he's just someone I look up to. He says, we all know that you love this thing more than anyone else has ever loved a thing. We just hope that someday you will shut the heck up. But he doesn't use the word heck. But do not clap until you have visual confirmation that the end credits are in fact rolling. because that is the only appropriate time to clap and cheer during a film. So please shut your mouth and let other people enjoy their movie theater experience. This has been a public service announcement from Mason.
Wow. Thank you, Scrooge.
I will come after you.
So you heard it here first,
Heard it
folks.
here first.
Watch yourselves. Mason.
Watch yourself.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Our next episode is another patron choice. It is actually The Princess and the Frog, which used to be on Netflix. It is, however, not on Netflix anymore. So I will include links at the very bottom of the website in the footer. There's a little section that has links on how to watch this. I will include links so you can download, rent, or view very legal ways, so we can all be prepared to watch this fantastic film. So talking about the complete other end of the spectrum, we have Don Hertzfeldt and all of his glory, and then we have the powerhouse Disney, which is the ultimate commercialism. Basically everything, it epitomizes it all. Right. So we will jump back to that world next episode. So you can join us in the comments for this episode, rotoscopers.com/119. Wow. Please go there. If you've gone to Netflix where you can watch this film, if you have a Netflix subscription, absolutely please go watch the film and then give us your thoughts on what you think about the film, what you would rate it. Do you agree or disagree? We love to hear your comments, and we will also be in the comments as well, responding back and forth. So join us there. Also, you can tweet about this on Twitter, #AnimAddicts and #AnimAddicts119 to talk about this specific episode. You can also leave us a voicemail for our next episode, Princess and the Frog. Get your voicemails in soon, because I'm pretty sure we're probably going to hit our limit. We get so many voicemails, so if we hit more than 4 or 5, then we'll probably just have to curate some of the shorter ones or whatnot. So, but hey, get yours in soon, because I will give priority to those that send them in soon. You can give us a voicemail at rotoscopers.com/voicemails or 406-646-6575. And again, a big thank you to Alex D, one of our patrons. This was his patron pick. He provided 2, and this was the first one on his list, so we decided to do this one. And if you would like to discover the benefits of being a patron, go to rotoscopers.com/patron or /Patreon, and you could read all about it. Thank you so much to the newest patrons who have joined. The newest patron, I did write it in the show notes, and it got deleted somehow. No.
Oh. Page.
Press undo.
If you would like to, be a patron, definitely consider it. We love our patrons and everything that they're able to do. Again, we are slowly climbing up in the monthly donation. Whether you're $1, $5, $10, anything you can do, we really do appreciate, and it does help support the show. Once we hit our next milestone, which is $500, we will start going weekly, which is huge. Basically, every week you're going to have an episode from us, which is going to be pretty incredible. So thanks everybody for that. And then also other ways to support the show, really simple and easy, rotoscopers.com/Amazon, where you can start all of your Amazon shopping using our link. A little bit goes back to us to help support the show. And thank you to everyone who has been supporting it. It does
Amy
mean a
F
lot
is our
to
new
us.
patron.
Amy F. Yes, that is the name. Thank you. I was just totally looking in the wrong spot.
Right.
I don't know. How weird. It was totally deleted, and now it is back. So Amy F., thank you for being a new patron, and shout out to her. So yes, anyways, thanks everyone for joining us for this episode. I'm Morgan Stradling. You can find me on the interwebs at Morgan Stradling, everywhere great social media is found. You can find Chelsea Robson on Twitter and Instagram. She's at Chelsea Robson. Also, chelsearobson.com is a great place to find her. And, you can schedule her to sing songs for you at your next birthday party. If you want to see where she's going to be performing next, check that out. Different things like that. Also, Mason is Mason's SMTX on Twitter and Instagram. He also can be found at masonsmithportfolio.com, where you can check out a lot of his amazing student work, and he's always updating it, and it's really cool. So go check that out, and he would appreciate it.
Especially if you were like a PR person or a recruiter from a major animation studio. That'd be like great.
It'd be awesome. Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
All right, but before we go, chat room, do you have any suggestions for the title for this episode?
The title.
What did we talk about? We talked about a lot of
how well, existentialism. We talked about. I couldn't get the name right.
Oh yes, it was. I wish I remember exactly what you said when you were talking about it. You said something about stick figures.
Everything is a day.
Everything is a day. How's up?
How's up? There we go.
How's up? Is that what he says in the film?
Yeah.
Such a hideous day. It hurts. It hurts.
Oh man. I don't think this.
Our most Hertzfeldt episode yet.
It's a beautiful, wonderful life day.
Everything's a beautiful, wonderful life day.
There we go. You want to do that?
Yeah.
All right. Who wants to record it?
I'll do it because I haven't said much at all.
Chelsea's making her rounds.
All right. You are listening to the animation. Let's start this over. You are listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers, episode 119. It's such a beautiful day. It's such a beautiful, wonderful life day. Yay!
All right. Thanks for those who are joining us live on the broadcast. You get to see a little behind the scenes of us recording the episode title. Thank you to Gabriella, who gave us that suggestion for this episode. And until next time,
we are the Rotoscopers.
Without a delay, it worked.
Hey, I think it might have worked. Let's go. Okay, end the episode right now. Let's listen to it.
Bye.